Here is my model of a flowering plant. I've already made the model, so now I'm ready to connect it to my FunKey. For each part of my plant, I need to make a closed circuit from one of the inputs to the ground. But how can I make sure that my closed circuit is working? With a battery pack and an LED on the output side, I can check that my input is signaling my output. With the input confirmed, I'm closing a circuit. I can now put the parts of the circuit into a part of my flowering plant. I'm going to start with the flower. With the ends of my alligator clips embedded in the flower, then when I touch the two alligator clips, it closes the circuit, putting an input, and then I get an output with my LED. Now I've set up the same closed circuit system for all the parts of my plant: the flower, the stem, the leaf, and the roots. Each one I can close the circuit for an input and output. Now that the inputs on my model are set up, I need to set up my code so that those inputs will signal information in my Scratch game. I'm going to make one costume for each of the 4 parts of the plant, and each costume will have information about those different parts. Notice where my mouse is going whenever I change the colors or I change from text to a box, and also notice where my mouse is going when I'm creating a new costume in the bottom corner. Now that the costumes are created, I go back to the code section so that I can make it change the costumes when I give the correct inputs. Notice I also went back and made another costume to have a title slide for my game. Notice, when I realized that all the costumes had too similar of names, I went back into the costumes and changed each of the titles to make it easier for me to keep track of my different costumes. The code we're using here is very simple. We're only using the yellow button click blocks and the purple change costume blocks, so that whenever it gets an input, it will change to the costume of the information we want to display. The W, A, S, and D keys correspond to inputs on the FunKey. Once that simple code is all set, it's time to connect our physical display to our Scratch program. First, remove the battery pack and switch it out for the USB cable to connect the FunKey to the laptop so it will send its inputs to Scratch. Test your inputs to make sure they signal the right information on your screen. When I first touched my flowers, it pulled up the information for the roots, so I needed to switch which costume it went to. The stem input and the leaf input both signaled the correct costume, giving the information about the stem and the leaf. But the root was also incorrect, so I needed to change the costume signaled by that input. Finally, I do one last test to make sure each input signals the costume with the correct information about the part of the flowering plant, and then I know that my flowering plant model is ready to display for my class.
Yes,